This episode of the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology podcast is brought to you by the Fun Astrology 101 course. If you'd like to learn the language of astrology in a fun and easy way, go to funastrology.com and check out the 101 course. It's right there on the homepage. Welcome to the Old Soul, New Soul Astrology podcast, and this part 2 of the previous episode on the nodes of the moon. We got into a big discussion about the interpretation of the nodes of the moon, and in this episode we are going to listen to Robert dissect my chart. This is all predicated on the previous episode, so if you're just dropping in here, please jump off, go back to the one right before it, and then come back to this one for part 2. I will say this, there are 2 types of Western astrology interpretations of the nodes of the moon. A long time ago, Robert learned his style of interpreting, which he clearly illustrates and repeats right as soon as we jump into the interview. My side that I learned was that the south node is residual karma left over from accumulated past lives, and the solution to that karma is in the north node. This obviously also takes into consideration the signs and the houses the nodes are in. To me, that interpretation plays well with the description that Robert gave in the last episode about the crossing of the ecliptic. The north node crosses the ecliptic going up. To me, that's the move toward. Elevate that. The south node is descending down below the horizon of the ecliptic. That means, trouble. Even in Vedic, the north node was the head of the dragon, the south node was the tail of the dragon. Vedic astrology interprets both as the dragon. They're both negative. Robert's position is different, as he very well laid out in his own words in the last episode, and we'll begin with that here. And then he jumps into my chart, which is also included in the show notes.
It is a polarity. So you don't move toward one or the other. You integrate both of them consciously if you can. And that's the point of astrology, I think.
Mm-hmm. I get that. That's what I'm getting. That's my takeaway from this, is integrating both of them. Well said. And maybe for those of us who came up from the other teaching could hang right there. For the people that are confused who sent us these messages, just hang with integrate both of them.
Well, for example, don't you have, I'm just thinking in your chart, don't you have the north node in Libra? Yeah, you've got the north node in Libra. It's very easy for you to veer toward marriage, which you did. It's easy.
Yes.
Because you've done it in past lives. What is not easy for you is to emphasize yourself. And this has been the existential dilemma since you were born. You were raised in an environment where there were a lot of ministers and religion and so on, and family and all that. Those traditions were upheld. And for a while you thought about being a minister. But it turns out you're not any of those things. I mean, you are because you were born into it. But the Aries quality is about me first is the challenge in this life. Am I going to do with my life what I want to do, truly want to do, or do what is expected of me, other people? The easy thing is to get married. The easy thing is to please other people. It's Libra. Do what your mother and dad want you to do. Get married, have children, live a traditional life. That's not your truth. The thing you have to work on, the south node in this life, is yourself, your truth. And your truth is not those things. You're not a traditional guy, and you're not a conformist. You're your own man. And to be your own man has caused a great deal of conflict, especially recently, as we know. But this is like the birth of your realization of your south node. And really, in your life, your south node up there becomes your greatest asset when you become conscious of it. It's ruled by Mars, which, of course, is conjoined your Sun and your Neptune, the magician, the spiritual, the metaphysical healer, the wise man, the man of transformation, the creative man. And on a very deep scorpionic level, that's where your Mars is, which rules that south node. And then your Venus, which rules Libra, your north node sign, is in Virgo. It's a very dissatisfied position, Venus in Virgo. You know, the old myth about Virgo, it's Venus in Virgo essentially is a loner. And most people, it can be a very lusty sign. It's an earth sign, but it's a very critical sign. It is very difficult to ever feel satisfied in life with Venus and Virgo because it's constantly analyzing things. Virgo is, it's an earth sign, but it's ruled by Mercury and logic and reason. And those are the things that turn out to be a real asset for you, especially in communications field like you're in, because Venus is in your third house along with Pluto of communications. But it is not an easy position for relationships. And I'm not saying that Venus and Virgo can't have them. Of course they can. But it's a very analytical position, and it's fraught. It tends to never quite feel satisfied with anything or anybody, because its nature is to heal people and heal itself. Well, if there's nothing wrong, there's no need to heal anything. So Venus in Virgo makes for a terrific doctor, a nurse and healer, for example, or metaphysician, because it's a fixer-upper. But by nature, Venus in Virgo will be drawn to troubled people because it is meant to heal them. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes people reject healing. That doesn't denigrate the natural quality that you have about you want to heal people and help people and serve people through your communications. And that's that Venus ruling your North Node. But again, if you just look at your chart from a very fundamentalist standpoint, North Node in Libra, the natural thing is I can get married and have children. I've done that. I've been good at that. In a past life, I've also sacrificed what I really wanted to do to marriage and family. And a lot of people do this. And in this life, unconsciously, because you're not going to be conscious unless you get in touch with this through astrology, unconsciously, with that elevated South Node in Aries, that is being true to thine own self, be true. And it's a difficult thing to do because it looks very selfish to the outer world. But a lot of people who are devoted, they find a career that they really love in their souls and that they're really good at. And that's truly what they love more than anything. They can't say that because it sounds selfish, but it's true. And when you have an elevated Aries by North Node, South Node, or planet or anything else, Aries is about self-development, nothing else. You're here to learn. Can I evolve myself? How much can I learn? How much can I grow? How close to connecting with the all that is or with God can I become in this life? And it's very self-involved. It does not mean that it's ungenerous, because it isn't. It can be incredibly generous, but its primary focus is how far can I evolve?
I want to speak to those who are trying to figure this out for themselves. If you can capture what Robert just said about my own chart, and let me tell you that I am going back in my 18, 17-year-old mind, realizing that I needed to find a girlfriend so that I could get married. And I was one of the most unconscious teenagers because my whole focus was get married and go into the ministry. And what does a preacher need? A wife. So that was my focus. That was my unconscious focus, that I had no training, no awareness of this. My parents they wouldn't have ever looked at an astrology chart. And what he is saying here, if you can catch, and I know this is my life, not yours, but if you can just use me as an example, that what he is saying here is exactly what happened. That I did go out aggressively as a late teenager into my 20s, got married at age 23, never should have. Robert, I should not have been able to date until I was 47. I mean, it was just like I never should have been allowed, because I did need to stand up for myself. And I switched careers in college, stopped the ministry path, went into broadcasting, and that's when the family conflicts began. So if you guys who are struggling through this can just use my little window of the world and my experience of what Robert just taught us, then that would be a really good place to go back and look at your own life with the characteristics of your own North and South Node and try to see what he's saying here if you've been brought up from that perspective that we mentioned that I have of the polarity. So, wow.
Well, Thomas, the other addition to that is that once you evolved out of pleasing other people and trying to become a minister and getting married and having children, all of that, it turns out that you have many, many wonderful relationships in your life. I'm one, and I value our relationship very much. I've told you this before. I have a very difficult chart for marriage, too. And I've laughed. I said, this is the marriage I've been looking for. Yeah. You and I have met exactly once. But since you were a student in my classes at Kepler, I knew you were a terrific astrologer and you were very deep and perceptive and all of that. But then with these podcasts, it's become a wonderful professional association dedicated to the same thing, which is exploring and sharing what we have learned and are learning through astrology and metaphysics. So it's a terrific relationship, which you have with your clients and with the fun astrology, everything that you've done. It's just that you don't, and me either. Neither one of us live with anybody else on a day-to-day basis. So we don't have hairs in the sink and who takes out the garbage to worry about. It's all ourselves. But at least we're not distracted by a marriage relationship. And believe me, when you're married, your partner deserves at least 50% of your love and time and attention. And of course they do. But for people, some people, and I'm one, and I think probably you're another one, this work is far more involving and frankly enriching and meaningful than the traditional path that is pushed on us really from, collectively, cultures and the town we grew up in. Everybody should be married and have children. Well, not everybody's meant to.
Well said, and yes, well executed. And, sometimes these things take 60-something years for us to finally get it, but once we do, it's great. Wow. Well, thank you so much for that one. I hope this helps you guys clear this up. The best way, if you're not clear, the best way is for you to get a hold of Robert and have a reading, because that's the source of this other explanation, that if you're not able to figure out your north node, just look in the show notes. His email is in there, and that's how he books his readings. And contact him, because this is the soul karmic stuff is embedded in the nodes. This is when people say, I'd like to learn astrology so that I could figure out why I'm on this crazy journey that I'm on. The nodes are where you go. So I hope that this helps, and I hope that you'll reach out. And if you can dissect it on your own, great. And we have the Discord group. If you'd like to join that, it's absolutely free. The link is at the top of the funastrology.com website. And Kristen has been doing a phenomenal job bringing that conversation to life. And if you have questions in there, we can try to do what we did and ripple them up to here and address them. But we want you to be on your path. We want you aimed and armed with the very best tools that heaven provides. And this is it. So I hope that this means a lot to you. Thank you for these questions to our two listeners. Thank you for being vulnerable and to just say, hey, I don't understand. That's perfect. We also have the Speak Pipe where you can leave your own message like Kathy did, and that's also at the top of Fun Astrology. So check all of that out. We're here for you. I love you. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.